Well, we're going to do this live here at myworldpod.com. We've been telling you it's your home for all things Jeff Jarrett, and to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so you never miss it when we're live. And one of the bonuses of being live at myworldpod.com is we can take live fan questions.
How about that?
It doesn't really fit what we're doing right now, but I just got a question from Alex that we got to answer. From a worker's perspective, what is the difference between a WCW style match and a WWE style match? Famously, I've heard that referenced most when talking about the infamous Booker T Buff Bagwell match on Monday Night Raw. What is the difference between the two styles of the WWF and WCW from your perspective? I know the ropes are different. I know the sizes of the ring are different. Are there more differences that maybe we fans haven't recognized?
So what did you just say, Conrad? Because the ropes and the size of the ring, is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So those are two things that I would have never brought up. And I think, man, oh man, Conrad. Alex, first of all, awesome question. I appreciate you asking. And the reason being is that you could ask former WWF or guys that started in WWF and went to WCW, and then so their point of reference is, oh, I know what I just came from at WWF style matches, and I'm now in WCW in those style matches. But then if you have the WCW guys and go into WWF, there's a kind of a different mindset. So Conrad, I don't even know where to start because this could really get long-winded. So let me just be concise as possible. In the WWF, and look, obviously WCW closed and all that. So we're really talking about a 90s style mentality, which is heavily influenced by the product they generated, and it's coming from the 80s where they're enhancement matches. But when you had enhancement matches, 80s and early 90s, you did, we'll say, 3 to 5 things that were kind of your signature moves, if you will. And so the first parts of the match in WCW, the enhancement matches, you just went out and some guys had a different match. I'll just example, maybe a Bobby Eaton. He never had the same match. And, because he's a hell of a worker, and I'm not criticizing or complimenting. It's just the kind of the difference, the difference in how enhancement matches were looked at. The WWF and Vince and Pat and others, you got your signature moves over, and I'm not talking about just your finish, but a couple of signature moves over. And then when you got into your working with the other top talent or your opponent, you always integrated, I'm going to do some of my stuff and integrate your stuff in and kind of have that flow. And then when you got into the finishes, to say that the WWF had any much more storyline driven, I think that's the easiest way, but that's really not a knock on WCW. It's that they had much more of a professional wrestling finish, and WWF had a much more, I'll call it a sports entertainment finish, and a lot more dramatic pauses and a lot more, I don't want to say selling, but build, and it kind of built to a crescendo. And again, I know so many different people, Bruce, JR, all the, you name it, people that were heavily involved in WWF at the time. Pat Patterson had a very, very enormous influence on kind of going from, once it's time to go home, point A to point B to point C to point D, and you may even get into E, F, G, and H. Me and Scott, when we had our all series of matches, in the 90s, we had an A match, we had a B match, and we had a C match. And you would never have that at WCW. So I guess the sports, at the very top of it, it was sports entertainment versus professional wrestling at its very core. Conrad, does that make sense? Or ask me a question to kind of help clean that up.
So listen, man, we know we're getting ready for the big pay-per-view here, and we've got some news and notes about Spanky. It's written here in the Observer. Spanky probably won't get a major push. It's the real life Brian Kendrick, keeping score at home, because 0-1 is going to remain his priority on dates, and they don't push guys who don't give up their Japanese deals. We should talk about that because you've had guys from New Japan and All Japan and Noah and 0-1 and even Big Japan in the early days of TNA. Was that a decision you had to make? Like, hey, if their priority is Japan, we're not going to be able to use them every show. So, you know, if we're not priority for you, you can't be priority for us. Is that pretty much it?
But I tried to, and you can go back and kind of just look at our history. I tried to be as upfront as possible and drill in and say, look, on the Asylum days, it's 1 day a week. Then when we got TV, it's 2 days a week and a monthly pay-per-view. So at the very most, 9 shows a month. And anybody that had a potential Japan deal, a current one coming up, I said, hey man, let's just get on the same page. If you want or need or what, just tell me. If Japan's your priority, I'm not saying I'm not going to use you, but you have to kind of understand that the guys that are committing and making us priority 1 and Japan priority 2 versus vice versa, that's just common business sense. And everybody really, I think both sides appreciated just the honesty, and I got it. So there were some guys that like, no, I'm going to make more money, or I want to really blow my career up over there, and I just don't think I can do it here. I'm like, I get it. Total honest conversation.
We're going to have an honest conversation about the pay-per-view now. We're finally here, Victory Road 2004. When you take a look at the Observer recap, the show got 57.7% thumbs up, 24.5% thumbs in the middle, and only 17.9% thumbs down. It was pretty close on the best match poll. AJ Styles and Petey Williams comes in first place. The X Division Gauntlet comes in second place. And you and Jeff Hardy come in third place. The minis match is a runaway for the worst match. When you first think about Victory Road 2004, without looking at research, without Google, just off the top of your head, what is your core memory of that show?
Jeff Hardy won't use the big ass ladder.
Okay.
I mean, I like how you set that up, but immediately I've yes, over and over and over. When I see that poster, I still think of that big ass ladder. And he's like, yeah, we're going to do this and that. And I'm like, damn, okay.